Alright, today we're talking about a fairly specific and I think pretty annoying Condor fit, which is why I call it the Condor Griefer fit. This setup is all about making life miserable for your target while staying safe and fast. The key to this fit, it's mostly the 80% reduction in the activation cost of propulsion jamming systems, which will basically make your warp disruptor cap-free, the 4 mid-slots, and I think a fairly special electronic warfare approach that I will elaborate on later. It's ideal for solo harassment with a fairly limited but very common prey pattern in faction warfare. So if you are looking to frustrate and outmaneuver your enemies, it will get the job done. So let's get into the specifics. As you can see, the fit needs a cheap CPU implant to make the fit work. This is usually this 3% one. For the high slots we use the Arbalest compact light missile launchers to save CPU. Doesn't really have much of an impact on the DPS anyways. In the low slots we have one ballistic control system 2 to improve the anemic damage and a meta capacitor power relay to make the fit cap stable, since we keep the MWD activated for most of the time anyways. The mid-slots, two of the mid-slots are expected for a kiting platform, the MWD, meta again to save fitting, and the warp disruptor 2. This needs to be at least Tech 2, more on that later, since we plan on staying on the edge of kiting range. When it comes to the electronic warfare, most fits usually go with a tracking disruptor, which we forego in favor of 2 sensor dampeners too. This makes it so that our designated target can't lock us at all. Tracking disruptors often fail, at least in my experience, against artillery fits, but if your enemy can't target you, you're perfectly safe, which I guess gets us to the annoying part of this fit. In terms of rigs, we go with 2 small capacitor control circuits for cap stability and 1 small inverted signal field projector, which improves the effectiveness of our Tech 2 electronic warfare modules. So now let's talk about how to use those sensor dampeners effectively. You can keep 1 dampener overheated, which lasts quite a while. An overheated dampener and 1 non-overheated will reduce the targeting range of a Thresher fleet issue, which has usually an unmodified targeting range of 37.5 km with all skills, down to 12.6 km. That makes it extremely safe to kite. The Cormorant with the longest targeting range among destroyers at 45 km will be reduced to 15.2 km with this combination. Therefore, destroyers are our preferred targets because the targeting range, once dampened, will be well outside our kiting range, and they tend to be slow enough that a Condor can kite them safely, avoiding slingshot attempts. Frigates can of course also be kited, but they introduce more complexity due to the speed. While a Condor is usually faster, if the frigate has a micro warp drive, the margin for error is much smaller. In the same way, sliding into a plex with this fit against a frigate isn't advisable, as frigates can often target you fast enough to apply scram, which will ruin your ability to kite. As for cruisers, while you can damp many of them below their targeting range, as you know, they often have drones or take too long to kill, making them less viable targets. Fortunately, at least for you, destroyers are plentiful in this faction warfare environment, making this fit highly effective and satisfying to fly, again for you, not so much for your enemy, but again, I guess who cares. Another trick you should use is cheap mutaplasmids to extend the range of the warp disruptor, often allowing you to hit an overheated disrupt range of 30 km or even more, making the kite even more ridiculous. The negative impacts of the mutation are usually negated by the Condor's bonus, so using mutaplasmids is a no-brainer for this fit. So I guess let's now get into some flight footage where you can see the application of this tactic in practice.